A very good evening to you traders. It's Mark here from the Daytrading Room. Time is approaching 10 to 7 in the evening London time on Thursday the 18th of August. A very busy Thursday. We are down 448 at the moment on the Dow Cash. So very, very busy day. I want to talk through Tuesday, Wednesday and some today's trades very quickly. I'll try not to make this video too long, but that I got to be aware of, and I'm often aware of intraday as well as if you're talking day-to-day action, is the shift of volatility from whether you go from slow volatility to extreme. It takes a while for me to ensure that I'm in tune with the pace of the market. Now, we had a very volatile last week, and it was continuation trade city. See some strength, see some weakness, wait for the pullback, and jump on board and scale out as that continued. But as we drifted into this week, I've really been focused on, up until today that is, I've really been focused a lot more on taking counter trend trades. So at tick extremes, at key levels like the gap fill, at key levels like yesterday's, the prior day's high low, those psychological numbers, levels on the Dow, that sort of thing. So it's just shifting from one sort of strategy to the other, one extreme to the other. I'd like to mix and match them both, and often under normal circumstances you'll get a day of aggression where you're taking continuation, then a day of sort of chop. So it's a bit of a mismatch of stuff really. So I've been reducing my trading size just as the trade flow type changes. But anyway, pretty pleased with how I've done. A few mistakes, but never perfect, guys. Okay, this is Tuesday, I believe, if I remember correctly, and just sitting through this, watching, see what happened. A bit of a gap low. We tried to fill that gap, couldn't quite get there. Oscillating around the VWAP overnight and that sort of thing. Pretty weak the ticks, but at the same time, I'm pretty keen on taking some tick extremes. That's what I'm after. That's how I'm looking to play it. So it wasn't one-way street. If this had been a one-way street straight from the, let me get my drawing pen out. If that had been a one-way street straight from the open, I wouldn't be looking to take a fade. But the fact that we'd driven up, driven back down, found a bit of support, took a drive lower, and the sort of day we were in, for me it was worth taking the minus 1,000 tick counter trend trade, which I did, and I didn't get far off the low with that. And it popped up straight away. So as it pops up straight away, I'm taking scales out into these pops. And now actually, I thought to myself, okay, we've got a little bit of the prior day was an up day. It was a gap up, and then it just continued to just close up near the top of its day. We have drifted down a bit overnight, but we're still within yesterday's range. You see, this is the low here, and this is the high here. So we're not talking mega bearish. So with that in mind, my idea for the trade was I wasn't planning on taking too many trades on a rotational type day. I didn't actually get involved in this because I was not at the screen, so that was not traded by me. But going back to the actual trade I took, the extreme ticks, take the long, thinking, okay, there's no reason to close the last patch. Of course, scaling out into the pushes up as per usual to reduce that risk, to take the risk off the table, to make it a free trade. Was aware obviously that the prior day's low was there, but as that was holding and I got a great bounce straight away, happy to hold that. So where's my obvious target? My obvious target is, I said to myself, for the last scale I'm going to either take it out plus 1,000 ticks or the gap fill, and would you believe it, it was actually both at the same time. There's your 1,000 ticks there, 1,010, and the gap fill came there. So pretty much got within a few ticks of that little high swing. Obviously went higher, but very pleased to be on the end of that. If I remember rightly, it was a 74-point trade. That probably works out right on the last scale off the top of my head. So entry whatever that was, and that was so. Yeah, pleased with that trade, and that was all I did for that day. As I say, I missed all this action. Some news came out, and that was all over the place, which was disappointing. But really happy just to calm down a little bit after the volatility, take stock of the situation, dial down the size a touch, and just refocus on the current market conditions. So very pleased with that. The next day, this was an interesting day. and a lot of people in the room spotted this as well. I just want to talk about this open trade very quickly. I've talked about this before, and it happened quite a lot, probably last month. We'd get this situation where there's your opening print, we get a drive lower, keep driving, keep driving. On the tape, you'd have a tape seller, he'd just keep lowering his offer, and the market would hardly lift up, or if it would, it'd be straight back down to where it was before. And so when I see that, I'm looking for him to. He's being hit all the time, by the way. He's lowering his offer, lowering his offer. We're seeing green on the tape. He's being hit. So there are buyers there, but he's the one who's pinning it down, and only him. So as soon as he lifts, I'm looking to take a trade in a direction against him, because I'm assuming that once he lifts and he's done his urgent or at open order, then we're going to resume the trend. We're going to resume the pressure that was under, which in this case was to the upside. But because he kept pinning it, we were going down, and that's exactly what happened here. You never get the low with this, because by the time it's lifted and you get your order in, you're a few ticks. It's popped up a few ticks. So you're probably 5 or 6 off the low. But again, your risk is quantified, and if he comes back in, you come straight out. So that was that little trade for me. Took that and then just out on these extreme moves up, pulses up, and not looking to hang about. Then I'm looking to buy a pullback. Okay, I'm looking to buy a pullback, get on board a pullback, looking ideally for the ticks to pull back to zero. But this is what happened at the overnight. At yesterday, the prior day's high, which was 11,450. We had an algorithm. He was the laziest algorithm ever. He was sitting on the offer, and buyers were just hitting him, and he was just sitting there. He wasn't even moving. At this point here, he moved very slightly, but he came straight back on. Now when I see that, the first thing I do is I take a short. Now, very, very quick short, because I still can see the strength in this market. I still want to be buying pullbacks. I don't want to be short for long. But often if you see that sort of algorithm, very rare by the way, to see that sort of thing on the YM, very, very rare. He literally was sitting there. I think he did 1,300 contracts, then did another 700. He was just streaming green, and he was just holding. So front run him. The first time I see him down, I'm out, taking a bit of a scalp. But I really wanted to be long on the position. That's what I was looking for. Now, there was the tick pullback there, and VWAP's holding, so I'm long. I'm covering that quick scalp short, and I'm taking a long. Now, the plan for this long was I was looking for another extreme tick reading. That was what I wanted. That was the plan. Now, the algo being there changed things slightly, but not too much, because it doesn't matter really what's happening on the tape if the ultimate trend and pressure, if you like, is the other way. There will always overcome any one tape player unless we are at a potential pivot point. Now this was just getting started, in my opinion. The drive was pretty aggressive from the open. The ticks were very strong. They pulled back, and we're still seeing strength. Now ticks pulling back to there, but price not pulling back too much either. So how did I play this? Well, obviously buying on that pullback there, and what I did with this one is, as it pushed up to that algo, I took off a bit of the position, because just in case he did hold and we ended up pushing through the floor, I wanted to make sure that trade was going to count. It was a good trade. I caught it right, make it count. Obvious level of resistance there, but at the same time, I've got a good feeling that he's going to break. The ES is pushing, S&P is pushing. It just looks like it wants to break, and at the end of the day, when he's under so much pressure, he's going to break. So he did eventually. He popped, and of course we've got people sitting there with stops behind him, causing that pop up. I'm selling into those guys, taking some more off the table, and then holding, because I want to see the actual premise of the real trade, which was a further drive up into some high ticks. So I held that, and didn't get that very high tick there. Actually was out on this high tick reading here. It wasn't the highest of the day, but it was quite high, and I thought, oh, we're over the prior day's high, and so came all out there. Plenty more. There was plenty more on the table, but left that there. So that was an interesting bit of trade, actually. Don't see that very often. But yeah, it was. I traded it well. I can't really complain. Perhaps should have held for a little bit longer on that. But overall, in that first 30 minutes, got into some nice stuff. This was a little bit interesting down here. We pulled back down here now, and where were we on the? Excuse me. Where were we on the cash? We just pushed right back down. We were under the 11,400 level on the cash. Now, and also obviously we're under the gap fill. We hadn't seen much of strength from the bulls at that point. So I'm looking for some sort of buy. I don't think we are in serious selling mode yet. Even though we've come a long way, I'm looking for a buy at this point for this flush out. Now, just before I talk about that, I want to just bring the 60-minute in if I can. Long view, bear with me while I bring this in, because I talked about this in the chat room. I just said this has got too many red flags, guys. I don't fancy buying this on a pullback. I'll buy a flush lower, but it just looks like it's the people have been caught in the easy trade. Look, there was the drive down. Obviously, we had the counter trend pullback. Now, people are waiting. People like to see strength before they get involved. So they're not standing in front of a train here. They're not in this. They see it start to calm down. So all the retail guys, they get called up by the brokers and say, "Hey, time to get back in the market." And so what do? They wait until they see it break out of here and think, "Hey, we're going to be back up here within a few days. I'm going to buy." So that was the early rally that I talked about, and we got long on that and took it off and then waited to see what happened. But I just said, listen, if this 11,400 breaks, there's going to be a lot of trap bulls very unhappy with that, because it really has sucked them into the market early on. Yeah, we're looking like we're going up, guys. It's all over and done with. We're back up. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. It just looked like too much of an easy trade for me. And an easy trade is never a good trade. If you see a trade, you think it's an easy trade, like breakouts and stuff like that, they just, I've got to be suspicious of them. So that's why I wasn't buying here at this VWAP. Now, under normal circumstances, I would be buying around this level without a doubt. It's nice and low. It's pulled back. It's looking strong. It's holding firm. There's our prior day's high. VWAP there. There's loads of reasons to be buying at any point around here. You can just take your pick and take a little scalp off that. But I just didn't like that 60-minute. Man, I just was not happy with it. Uncomfortable. And it proved to be correct. Trading gut proved to be correct. But I was still happy to buy a bit of an extreme tick down here. We broke through the 11,400 cash and the gap, and it would come quite a way, flushed out quite a lot of people. So a new low tick of the day. So I'll have a little nibble. And this was a little bit painful, and I just want to talk about why the stop positioning was as it was. Now, obviously, taking stuff out on the first impulse up, get that straight away. Make sure you get something off. Make sure the trade pays for it. Make sure the trade pays you for getting your entry right, at least. Now, normally, or not normally, but sometimes I may put my stop right below that low. But in this case, you have to give it more room. So how do you decide whether to give that a little bit more room or whether to put the stop below the low? Now, the way I do it, it's not a finite hard and fast rule, guys, but this is sort of the idea I have behind it. Is if you're buying that tick low and you get a really decent drive off and you get some scales off and you got some left, then I would not want to revisit it. I would not want to. It should be doing this sort of thing if that's the case. However, if it, like we did here, we've got a good drive lower and the pullback's very shallow, your entry isn't quite right, so get some scale off, but you're going to have to be prepared for it to perhaps put a wick in, and that's what I was looking for, that little wick, because the bounce was so poor relatively to the move. Okay, it was enough for me to get scale off, but it was quite poor. You're going to have to keep your stop where you initially had it for the entry, whatever that may be, 15 ticks, 12 ticks, and just potentially take a losing trade even though you got a scale off, because I'm not scaling half on that, I'm just scaling a few. So that's why, and I didn't like this. I might have to say I really didn't like it when it was coming down here. It just kept probing this level. I thought, you know what, if I get stopped, I get stopped. I'm happy to do that. It's not going to be giving back much of this. I've already taken some off, so whatever happens, it's an okay trade. Let's clear some of those drawing pens out of the way. So that's the way I looked at it. Fortunately, it held. We got a bit tick divergence, gave me a little bit of hope, and yeah, we held. We popped back up. Just couldn't get above this 60 level. It just kept trying and failing. So as it popped up and failed, I just closed another batch here. But really, the premise of the trade was for the pullback to 11,400. That was the idea. That was what I wanted to achieve. And so fortunately I managed to get the last scale, which was about 78 I think on the YM, but I was looking for that 11,400 on the cash, so worked out okay. Not the best trade in the world, but it was I thought it was a reasonably high probability trade. But that was why I had to give that one a little bit more room and didn't pull that stop nice and tight up. If it had been this one, for example, then you don't want to be, it's quite a decent push up. You don't want it to be revisiting. Whereas if it's here hovering at lows, there's a chance that it could wick you and pop back up. So that was the way I played that trade. And pretty much left it then. Yeah, I did actually leave it. That was it for me today. I think that's it. Oh, sorry. Now today we are okay. Let's talk about today very quickly. 15 minutes. Let's rock on with this sharpish. As I said in the thing in the chat room, I said, listen, my bias is to the short side, but we're possibly going to get a little pop up from the open, but I am really looking for the short side. This is the overnight trade, by the way. Just a horrible grind down. We opened up right at the overnight low, and as I said before, is there any reason to think that they're suddenly going to bite at that point? If they do, you've got to be prepared to watch your tape and get on the short side of it, and that's what I did. I was watching that tape. They popped it up a little bit, even though the ticks were falling. They popped it up a little bit and they just couldn't hold it. The movement to the downside was quicker than the movement up. Got on the short side, scaling out as we're pushing to lows. Really, really good trade that. Very pleased to be on the end of that. Good tape read as far as I'm concerned. Good hypothesis pre-open. More than happy. Then I'm looking when I'm all out of that. Okay, as you know, that's my sort of way of trading. I tend to come out and then re-look for another entry. A perfect trader would probably hold himself short on that, but we're trying to improve. But always the way. Nothing's ever perfect. Looking for the pullback to get short. Tick pullback. There come the ticks. Up we go. Volume's quite low. Nice little pullback to get short on. Get the short on. Take it off as we're coming into as we start driving back down. Few scales there. I think I've missed off an arrow there. And then the data's coming out, so sit tight. Okay, now data came out, pushed us lower again. Bearing in mind we're already so low overnight, it's just back to last week's type of panic. And of course, my classic trade, continuation, back in the continuation mode. Drive lower, pull back. There's the little pullback. See the pause. Looking at the tape intently, hit it short, and then bang, scaling out into these lows as we just cracked. We just cracked and cracked and cracked. And I got some great scales out on that. Really, really good scales. And my last scale, if I recall, was around the 84 cash level, and we had 81 low, so not far off at all. But I'd say really, really small amount on that last little bit. This was a stop out for me. This was a stop out, just a stop, straight a stop, no scale or anything. Pull back. I'm still looking to short. Tick's pulling back to zero here, so I'm short. I'm straight away short, thinking this is going to revisit. It just went a little bit too far for me, and I think I probably got a stop out almost at the high tick on that, unfortunately. So gave back a bit there. Disappointing, but I'm happy to take that trade. It just went a little bit further than I anticipated. They just pushed it an extra bit. I knew there was some strength there, so I was just holding back a little bit. Thought I'd nailed it right on, but obviously hadn't. And of course, I don't want to sit through it because of the VWAPs here. The VWAPs here, we've got all sorts of levels. We've got 11,000 cash is up here as well, so I could quite easily push back up to there and still be valid. So if in doubt, ditch the trade, take the loss, reevaluate. If it pops up to there, I want to get short. Didn't pop up to there, so missed this downdraft here. This looked all a bit too much for my liking. This was some Hewlett Packard stuff came out, and now we're just drifting lower. But I don't like this. I don't like this in terms of getting on the short side. I know some guys have got on the end of that little move down there, but I don't like it. It's sort of like acceptance for me. I don't like the fact that we're under 11,000 cash. So I'm just going to watch the last hour. If we get a good drive, I'll play some continuation. If we don't, I'll leave it for the day. And see what happens tomorrow. So that's the trading. Again, I think the best thing at the moment is the ticks. I think the weak spot at the moment for me is shifting from one type of trading to another. So continuation to counter trend. So it's just getting a good read early on, and then switching if we're getting that sort of drive. So being cautious of that, looking at the ticks, looking where the market wants to go. More important as well, like the 60-minute kept me out of trouble yesterday and kept me on the right side today, looking to see who's trapped. I mean, that was a classic, the easy trade, getting the bulls in and then we're out and then we're just going to new lows the next day. That's the sort of thing we've got to look for. Who's trapped, who's hurting. pain is more of a incentive to get out of the market than greed is to get in. So yeah, good trading, guys. The most important thing is managing that risk. Taking stops. Who cares? Take the stop, reevaluate. If it's bugging you, you need to step back and get away from the screens and come back in. If you're regretting something, again, you need to take a step back. We can be our worst enemy sometimes in trading, so it's important to keep check on that and be aware of how you're feeling, your emotional thermometer, and most importantly, preserving capital. That's what my number one goal is when I go into the day. Keep that capital preserved, and then my second goal is to increase the capital. That's what I'm trying to do. So every single day, risk management, and then after that, looking to grow the capital. So good trading, guys. Manage your risk. Enjoy the rest of the day this afternoon, and enjoy, hopefully Friday we'll get some more action as well. But as important, really important, manage the risk and take care.